Rain fell softly over a quiet Seattle home as a Navy SEAL returned from war, unaware that the real danger was waiting inside. His loyal German Shepherd froze beside a wheelchair, guarding an elderly woman who could no longer speak, her eyes filled with fear. What the soldier didn't know was that mercy had been twisted into something deadly. What began as a homecoming would become a test of faith and a choice between silence and life. Some miracles don't come with thunder. They arrive when God decides it's time. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of faith, courage, and quiet miracles. Rain stitched the Seattle sky into low gray seams, mist clinging to fir trees and quiet streets, as a house on the outskirts waited warm, orderly, and hiding a breath that did not belong. Ethan Walker stepped through the front door with the practiced stillness of a man who had learned to arrive without announcing himself. 38 years old, broad-shouldered and solid, he carried the quiet weight of discipline in every movement. His jaw was sharp, the lines of his face carved by years of command and consequence. A faint scar near his right cheekbone marking a night when timing had meant survival. He wore his beard trimmed close, not for appearance but habit, and his steel blue eyes held the steady calm of someone who had learned to count heartbeats instead of seconds. War had not hardened him. It had narrowed his focus. It taught him to notice what others missed. At his side moved Rex, a 6-year-old German Shepherd with a black saddle and deep russet legs, heavy paws gliding across the hardwood floor without sound. The dog's ears bore a small notch, his left flank marked by a pale scar where shrapnel once kissed muscle. Rex was not just a pet, he was a veteran. Twice, on foreign soil, he had dragged Ethan from fire and smoke when human hands could not reach. In rooms, Rex was calm. In danger, he was absolute. The house smelled clean, lemon polish, fresh laundry, something faintly sweet. Claire Walker emerged from the hallway, tall and slender, her posture graceful in a way that suggested control more than ease. Her honey-blonde hair was pulled into a neat, low knot, a style chosen for efficiency, not vanity. Fair-skinned with soft freckles across her nose, Claire looked the way she always had, composed, gentle, careful. Her smile was practiced, warm on the surface, as if kindness were something that needed constant maintenance. She embraced Ethan lightly. "You're home," she said, as though the words could seal the moment. Rex stopped. His body stiffened just inside the doorway, ears lifting, chest expanding with a slow, deliberate breath. He did not bark. He did not advance. He stared toward the living room with a focus that tightened the air. Ethan felt it immediately, a subtle pressure beneath his ribs, the old instinct surfacing. Something was wrong. In the living room, Margaret Hill sat near the rain-streaked window, small and folded into her wheelchair. 70 years old, her frame had grown fragile, her white hair thin but neatly brushed back from a face shaped by endurance. The disease had stolen her speech and much of her strength, but not her awareness. Her pale green eyes followed movement sharply, fear and recognition flickering within them. On the coffee table stood a thick glass bottle of amber-colored syrup, its label peeling at the edges. Claire bent beside her mother, lifting a spoon with careful fingers. Her voice softened, lowered to something almost tender. "Mom, drink this," she murmured. "It'll make you feel better." Margaret's lips trembled. Her eyes darted toward Ethan, toward Rex. The growl came low and deep from Rex's chest, controlled, dangerous, final. The sound of a line being drawn. Ethan did not move at first. His mind cataloged details the way it always had. The unfamiliar bottle, the absence of prescription packaging, the slight tension in Claire's shoulders when the growl cut the room. He noticed the tiny shake of Margaret's head. He knelt beside Rex, resting a steady hand against the dog's thick fur, feeling the rhythm of a heart that had never failed him. "Claire," Ethan said calmly, his voice even as winter water. "What is that?" She straightened too quickly, her smile thinning but not breaking. "Something to help her relax," she replied. Outside, the rain continued to fall, soft, relentless, while inside, Ethan understood that something had already gone terribly, irrevocably wrong. Ethan said nothing that night. Silence, he knew, was sometimes the sharpest tool. When the house settled and Claire's breathing deepened into sleep, he moved with the careful economy drilled into him by years of night operations. Cabinets opened without sound. Shelves were read like maps. The medicine cupboard told its own story. Pill organizers labeled by day, neurologist printouts clipped together, dosage schedules written in Claire's precise handwriting. Everything was orderly. Everything was accounted for, except the amber syrup. No prescription, no note, no mention anywhere. Absence rang louder than proof. Ethan rinsed a spoon, dried it, and took the bottle from the living room. From an old habit he never questioned, he sealed a few drops into a sterile vial he carried in his duffel. Rex watched from the doorway, head lowered, amber eyes tracking Ethan's hands with the patience of a partner who understood restraint. The dog did not growl. He did not need to. He already knew. At dawn, Ethan drove south toward Tacoma, rain streaking across the windshield in thin silver lines. The city gave way to concrete and chain link, to a squat building whose windows reflected nothing back at the sky. Inside waited Dr. Lucas Moreno, a former Army medic turned military toxicologist. Mid-40s, lean to the edge of severity, Lucas carried himself like a man who trusted data more than people. His dark hair was threaded with premature silver, his beard cut close, exposing a jaw tightened by years of controlled frustration. An old IED blast had taken 2 fingers from his left hand. Since then, he tolerated no guesses, no assumptions. Lucas took the vial, studied it once, then ran the tests without comment. Machines hummed softly, clinical and indifferent. Ethan stood nearby, hands clasped behind his back, counting breaths like he used to count steps before breach. The results were clean, precise, terrifying. A low-dose respiratory depressant, masked with sweeteners. Not fast enough to trigger alarms, not strong enough to look like poison. Designed to slow breathing over days, allowing death to arrive quietly, wearing the face of natural decline. "Careful work," Lucas said at last, eyes heavy. "Deniable. It would pass as disease progression." Ethan nodded once. That was all. The rain followed him home. He waited until the afternoon light thinned, and Claire sat at the table with a cup of untouched tea. Ethan placed the lab report between them. He did not accuse. He did not raise his voice. The paper spoke clearly enough. Claire broke. Her tears came sharp and uncontrolled, shoulders folding inward as if the weight she'd been carrying finally demanded payment. She spoke of hospital bills, insurance delays, sleepless nights listening to her mother's struggle for breath. She spoke of a future collapsing into beeping machines and endless care. "I'm not killing her," Claire whispered. "I'm helping her go sooner. Gently." Ethan listened. He heard exhaustion. He heard fear. And beneath it all, he heard something colder, relief disguised as mercy. Rex padded forward and lay beside Margaret's wheelchair, his body forming the same quiet barrier as before. A choice without words. Ethan gathered the bottle and the report, his hands steady. In that moment, he understood the truth war had taught him too late. The most dangerous lines aren't crossed in rage, but in justification. Outside, Seattle kept breathing its wet, patient breath. Inside, a decision had already been made. Ethan had learned long ago that vows were not words spoken once and shelved. They were choices renewed under pressure. The Navy SEAL oath returned to him now with a clarity that hurt. Never abandon the vulnerable. Never dress cruelty in softer language. He felt it in his chest like a tightening band, the same sensation that preceded action when hesitation cost lives. Margaret could no longer speak, but her eyes followed Rex everywhere. They were alert, pleading, alive in ways her body no longer allowed. Rex had taken position beside her wheelchair, as if assigned there by an authority older than orders. His back was straight, tail still, ears angling toward every sound that belonged to Claire. He was 6, scarred and steady, a sentry who understood thresholds. Each time Claire entered with the amber bottle, Rex rose without growling and shifted his weight just enough to block her path. He did not bare his teeth. He did not need to. The message was simple: not past this line. Claire noticed. She adjusted. She began moving more quietly, smiling more, her gentleness sharpened by intent. In daylight, she was attentive, efficient, the daughter who changed linens and logged medications with meticulous care. At night, the house seemed to lean toward secrets. Ethan watched patterns emerge, timing, tone, the way Claire's patience thinned when she thought no one was listening. He did not confront her again. He waited, the way he always had, gathering certainty the way others gathered excuses. One evening, after the rain turned to a fine mist and the rooms took on that bluish hush before sleep, Ethan heard it. A whisper from the living room, thin as wire. "Just one more time," Claire murmured. "Then it will be easier." Her voice was not cruel. That frightened him more. He stood in the hallway, every instinct firing, the line he had tried not to see now blazing bright. Ethan stepped into the room. Claire startled, the bottle hidden too late behind her hip. Margaret's eyes flicked to him, urgent. Rex rose in a single fluid motion and placed himself between mother and daughter, shoulder brushing the wheelchair, breath steady. Ethan did not raise his voice. He did not advance. He spoke with the calm he reserved for moments when chaos begged to be invited. "No," he said. One word, clean and final. Claire's composure cracked. She spoke fast, defensive, her hands trembling. She said Ethan didn't understand the cost, the endlessness, the way love eroded into duty and duty into resentment. She said mercy had to mean something practical. Ethan listened without interruption. He saw the exhaustion etched at the corners of her mouth, the fear behind her eyes. He also saw the calculation she could not fully hide, the relief she imagined, the future simplified by an ending she could control. Rex sat. He did not look at Claire, he looked at Ethan. It was the look he had given on a rooftop overseas when smoke closed in and the wrong choice meant bodies. Ethan felt the answer settle. Silence, he knew now, was not neutral. It chose sides. He took the bottle from Claire's hand and set it on the counter, out of reach. He knelt beside Margaret, meeting her gaze, and placed his palm over her thin fingers. "You're not alone," he said, not loudly, but with a promise in it. Then he stood and faced his wife. "This stops," he said, "tonight." Outside, the mist kept falling, soft and uncounted. Inside, Ethan understood that keeping faith with the oath would cost him something he once believed was unbreakable. He accepted that cost without ceremony. The line had been drawn. He would not step back from it. The rain came down harder that night, a steady percussion against windows and roofs, turning the streetlights into blurred halos. Ethan moved with quiet intent, not like a man hiding, but like someone finally aligning action with conscience. He set his phone where it could hear without being seen, angled a small camera toward the living room, and documented what had already announced itself to his instincts. Dates, times, the bottle's reappearance, the way Claire's voice softened when persuasion failed. He recorded facts the way he once marked grids, knowing precision protected the innocent. When Claire realized he was no longer negotiating, her demeanor shifted. The gentleness peeled back. She paced, hands shaking, words sharp with fear. Ethan did not argue. He contacted Adult Protective Services for Washington State and waited, every minute an exercise in restraint. Rex remained beside Margaret, body angled, eyes never leaving the door. The dog's posture said what Ethan refused to. "This ends now." The responders arrived just after midnight. Officer Hannah Pierce entered first, rain-dark hair pulled into a tight braid, mid-30s, athletic build, her face all planes and purpose. She spoke calmly, evenly, the way people do when chaos needs fewer edges. Behind her came 2 EMTs in reflective jackets and Dr. Alan Cho, a geriatric physician with a soft voice and tired eyes, silvering at the temples, hands steady from decades of difficult conversations. Claire unraveled when the authority in the room became undeniable. Tears loud, explanations tumbling over one another, mercy invoked like a shield. Officer Pierce listened without judgment, but her gaze stayed on the bottle, the recordings, the report. Facts did not flinch. Margaret was assessed carefully. Dr. Cho knelt to her level, explaining each touch as if words still mattered, as if dignity required narration. He nodded once, grim. "She's in respiratory compromise," he said quietly to Ethan. "Another few days, maybe less." The unspoken finished itself. The EMTs transferred Margaret to a gurney with practiced care, blankets tucked, straps gentle. Rex followed step for step until Officer Pierce guided him back with a soft hand and a look of respect. The dog sat at the threshold, rain misting his coat, eyes fixed on the ambulance as if willing it to keep her breathing. Claire's collapse was not graceful. It was messy, human, born of corners closed too tightly. She was escorted outside under the rain's judgment, her sobs swallowed by the weather. Ethan watched without triumph. There was only the weight of choosing correctly and the cost attached to it. At the medical center, Margaret was admitted to a specialized unit. Tubes, monitors, the low beeping of vigilance replaced the quiet threat of the house. Dr. Cho confirmed it later, voice steady, eyes kind. "You were in time." Ethan felt the sentence land like a release he hadn't allowed himself to imagine. Back home, the rooms felt emptied of deceit. Ethan boxed the bottle and evidence with gloved care and locked it away. Rex lay near the door, exhausted, ears twitching at distant sirens. Ethan knelt and pressed his forehead to the dog's, a rare intimacy, gratitude without words. The rain softened near dawn. Somewhere across the city, a fragile life continued, not because mercy had ended it, but because truth had interrupted. Ethan understood then that storms did not always cleanse. Sometimes, they simply revealed. The courtroom did not feel like justice so much as an ending without ceremony. Claire Walker stood smaller there, shoulders drawn in, honey blonde hair dulled by fluorescent light. The careful composure that once defined her replaced by a tight, defensive stillness. The charges were read plainly: poisoning, abuse of a dependent adult. And the words landed with the quiet weight of inevitability. Ethan did not look at her as the proceedings moved forward. He listened. He let the record speak. When it was over, the marriage dissolved, not with shouting or blame, but with a silence so complete it felt final. Some things he knew were not meant to be argued back into place. He sold the house a month later. The rooms had learned too much. He chose instead a long-term care facility near the coast north of Seattle, where the air tasted of salt and the mornings carried the sound of waves folding into themselves. The building was low and open, glass facing water, designed to let light do some of the healing. Margaret settled there with the patient dignity she had always possessed. Her hair was kept short and neat. Her eyes, though tired, remained attentive. Nurses moved gently around her, narrating each small act. Among them was Lena Brooks, early 40s, tall and spare with dark curls pulled back, and skin the color of warm sand, her manner steady and unhurried. She had lost her father to a long illness years before. Since then, she spoke to patients the way she wished someone had spoken to him, honest, calm, present. Ethan visited regularly. He brought coffee that smelled better than it tasted, and news that didn't ask much of the listener. Rex always came. The dog was aging now, his muzzle peppered with gray, his stride a touch slower, but his attention never drifted. He lay beside Margaret's chair during visits, head near her knee, breathing synced to hers as if the simplest math could keep both of them anchored. Outside, gulls cried and the tide worked its steady geometry against the shore. One afternoon, the light was especially kind. The water shone like brushed steel, and the room hummed with the low comfort of routine. Margaret lifted a hand with effort, fingers thin and trembling, and placed it on Rex's head. The dog stilled completely, eyes softening, accepting the weight as if it were an honor. Margaret's lips curved just barely into a smile that did not ask for more time than she had. Ethan watched the moment settle and felt a truth he had been circling since the rain first began. She had never needed an ending arranged for her. She needed presence. She needed permission to remain. After, Ethan walked the path along the bluff while Rex nosed the grass, careful and content. The ocean breathed, indifferent and eternal. Ethan understood that loyalty was not loud. It did not justify itself. It chose, again and again, to stand where life was still speaking. Rex trotted back and sat at his heel, looking up with the same steady gaze that had guided him through smoke and doubt. Together they turned toward the building, toward the light, toward what remained. And that was enough. Some miracles do not arrive with thunder or fire from the sky. They come quietly, in a single moment of courage, in a decision made when silence would have been easier. God may not always speak in a voice we can hear, but He is present, in loyalty that refuses to step aside, in a conscience that will not compromise, and in a life that is given time instead of an ending. This is often how God works in our daily lives. He does not always remove the storm. Sometimes He gives us the strength to stand inside it and choose what is right. Most of us will never face choices as dramatic as the one in this story, but every day God places smaller choices in our hands. To protect or to look away, to love or to justify convenience, to speak or to remain silent. And sometimes the greatest miracle is not saving a life at the last second. It is refusing to let that life be pushed toward the edge in the first place. If this story touched your heart, please share it. Someone, somewhere, may need to be reminded that their life still matters. Leave a comment and tell us where you are watching from. Let us know if you believe miracles still happen in everyday life. If you believe stories of faith, compassion, and quiet courage deserve to be told, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. May God bless you and protect you. May He watch over you and your loved ones, and give you the courage to always choose the side of life, love, and light.